Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. If you're a brand or retailer, are you meeting rising customer demands? Well, in this episode, Gerry's doing a deep dive into the Omnichannel Retail Index with Kathy Kimple, Executive Director of OSF Digital's strategy team. Kathy's got over 30 years of experience in retail with a focus on retailers, brands, and more. So, we're going to talk about how OSF helps retailers and brands learn the latest digital and omni-channel best practices in their industries with the Omnichannel Retail Index. Hello there, Gerry. How are you?
Hey, Joe. Great. Greetings from Atlanta.
And you are in Atlanta for you're not there to visit the Coca-Cola headquarters. You're there for a big OSF event. Just a quick little thumbnail about what's going on there.
We're just having a get-together. Our North American sales team is here, and we are talking about how to do better for our customers and how do we learn from each other, socializing also, which is kind of nice. So it's pretty good environment, good vibe. I love it.
So unfortunately for our guest today, she's pulled away from all the fun and frivolity at the OSF shindig. And her name is Kathy Kimple. And Kathy Kimple, also, me and her are Garden State brother and sister. She hails from New Jersey, as do I. So Kathy, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Great to be here. We will only say positive things about the beautiful Garden State.
Absolutely. Although Gerry's trying to work in some of his stand-up comedy about New Jersey, but we'll prevent him from doing that during the podcast. So Kathy, I understand you are the Executive Director of Digital Strategy at OSF. And for folks not familiar with your role there, well, what does that entail?
So what that entails is my role is working with retailers and brands, helping them identify ways to basically accelerate their business and transform it. So we will lean in either on what we call all the pillars of a digital business that are important. So site merchandising, marketing, customer experience, org design, P&L, my least favorite topic. And we can lean in on all of those pillars and start to craft a strategy to help accelerate a business. We'll identify gaps, we'll identify ways to grow the business. And we've been talking a lot over the last couple of days about how do you reimagine the business and really take it to the next level. So that's my job, and then we basically utilize the power and the strength of OSF to pull in some technology enablers as well. So once we've crafted that strategy, how do we find the technology that'll support it and implement it and then optimize it? So that's my job.
Now, Kathy, there are folks who know retail, and then there's Kathy Kimple. You've been in the retail space for a few decades, and I don't want to age you. I mean, I'm old enough to remember. Yeah, no, I'm old enough to. I know, but I'm old enough to remember linens and things where I know you cut your teeth for many, many years there. So, and obviously, when you were doing the retail thing 30 years ago, e-com and digital was not the place it is today. Can you walk me through and give some of the folks, maybe the younger generation folks, what the transformation was like that you've seen on the ground level of retail going from 0 to 60 in e-commerce?
I launched the e-commerce site for Linens and Things in 1999, and you didn't have these robust platforms. You didn't have headless commerce. You didn't have Marketing Cloud. You didn't have loyalty. You were just working and being scrappy on trying to get product on a site and have it, create a transaction. And that's what it was like in 1999. It was like, build it. If you build it, they will come. And it was a bet, but it was also a really wild time because you were seeing digital growth. We weren't talking about numbers like Black Friday and Cyber Monday of 10% growth. I was looking at 100, 200, 1,000% growth that we were then having an impact on moving the organization. So, as we were sort of trailblazers back in 1999. But the pace at which change has happened, and I say this every year, I'm amazed at the pace of change, but it hasn't slowed down. Innovation is happening at an amazing clip. People are changing, retailers are changing, customer expectation is changing.
What do you think about the concept of Black Friday? I mean, I don't think very highly about it, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it.
So we talking about Black Friday is as a retailer, you're forced to comp Black Friday numbers. And as a public company, you're like backed into the corner of how'd you do on Black Friday? And it is a very interesting concept because it's 3 days and you are promoting merchandise, you are promoting yourselves, and you are depressing your margins to a degree that used to take my breath away because it was what was expected. So I think if we see anything, we'd love to see retail start to evolve a little bit past that need to, I don't think we had riots at Walmart this year, but I think it did slow down a little bit. But I think retailers are trying to pull back from that deep, hideous discounting, riots at Walmart and Target, to have a more sensible approach to the gear up to the holiday season. And this holiday has been really interesting because we're hearing from clients that they are, they're concerned about the recession, the R word. They're concerned about their inventory levels. A lot of clients and folks that I've talked to have said, because they got burnt so much last year, they were like, okay, I'm gonna order 125% of what I need just to be sure I have it. But bad news is it came in. So now we know of folks who have heavier inventories going into the holiday with a pessimistic outlook. So I think it becomes how you look at the whole season, how you manage inventory, and how you manage customer expectation. And I think that's going to be transformative for retailers who, still have to deliver on their profitability.
It's funny, Kathy. I don't know if you remember, I worked for a radio station called WPLJ in New York for many, many years. And early on when I started, we used to do these Black Friday events. And so we would get there 6 o'clock in the morning and there'd be people lined up around the mall. But over time, I've saw what retail basically gutted the impact of Black Friday by starting their Black Friday sales on Wednesday. So all of a sudden, we went from Black Friday, all these people lined up, and then Black Friday a few years later, there's no one in the mall. They're not even bothered going to it. So how about that change in the approach of Black Friday now?
I think the change is that it's the holiday season. And last year, we saw the season started in October. It started November 1 because everybody was so afraid of the COVID impact, so afraid of I don't have enough inventory, so shop early. So I think we are seeing it is now the season. So it is starting earlier. The hype is not as great. It's still, it was still a $9 billion day, but I think it's more planned out. And at the end of the day, the retailer and what we should be reporting on is how the whole season shapes up. But there is so much noise in the numbers now, and we talk a lot about data because I can get a little data geeky, but it's how the whole season lays out. Because you've got to look at this year versus last year versus 2020, and it can't just be one day because there's so much movement. So as we analyze, it's the season.
And I believe this entire way of doing business in retail, it's so wrong, because this really focuses on the transactional part of what people are doing. They go in, they buy something, they leave, they buy it purely because of a very deep discount. And in some cases, it might not even be useful for them. It's just, let's shop for the sake of shopping, just because it's a great price, let me buy something. And I think that we need to make this more customer-centric, not transaction-centric. It needs to be way more customer-centric, put the customer in the middle, provide a much better experience, reimagine the experience. You can even increase the value of what you are saying just because you provide more value to the customer. Understanding what the customers want, what provides value for the customer, and then going with that. And I think there are still in many cases, the retailers are thinking about the transaction instead of thinking about the experience, instead of thinking about the customer in the middle of everything. So this thing is what really drives also Black Friday and this transactional view of things. And we need to shift this. We need to transform this. We need to go into a different direction.
I 100% agree. In my past life, when I was in stores, we looked and we called it cherry picking. So the customer would come in, cherry pick the item, go home. They didn't buy anything else. You took the margin hit. The only win, perhaps for the retailer in that scenario is, did I acquire you as a customer? Did I get your information that I can now market to you that you're a new customer for me? That's really the win, because it's not a win to have margins that are down in the 20s and 30%.
Now, Kathy, this is a hill that Gerry's going to die on. He is all about making customer centric. He hates the transactional way of doing things. And you sound the same.
I'm with him on that.
Kathy is gonna die on this hill together with me. We're gonna both die on this hill.
So, Kathy, you and Gerry are on this hill. You obviously see eye to eye, but as Gerry was mentioning, some companies want to think transaction first, then customer second. Talk to me about mindset. How do we get people out of that and to join you atop of that hill?
It's about the data and building the case. So yeah, I want them to join me on the hill, but I also worked for a public company that had to go through earnings calls and watch what would happen if you misspoke on an early earnings call, your stock price could drop. But it's about the reimagining it, it's the data, it's building the case that says if you're more customer centric, your customer will come to you more, be more loyal, spend more, and you start to win in that respect. And you can do that, and we see I look at it through something we do called the Omnichannel Retail Index, where we're measuring trends of features and functions. And I hear from my retailers, it is critical to them that they do more to their retained customers. How do I get them to embrace me more? And it can't just be giving them a 20% off coupon. You know, that 20% off coupon that I gave you today, you expect tomorrow, and I got a comp the next day. It's how do I make your experience better? How do I create a sense of loyalty to you? So it's your site experience is better. I build a loyalty program that's not about discounts. It might be about a partnership with another retailer. It might be about I get first rights to buy the hottest new sneaker. It might be about experiences. But it's using that information and starting to use that customer data. And there are very powerful ways we can do that to generate revenue other than giving 20% off the entire transaction.
You mentioned about you get the first right to buy the new pair of sneakers.
Right.
Like I really like this example. Why? Because you all have different ways of providing value to your customers. Don't go to your easiest one out and just go give them discounts, which might not even be that much of a value for the customer. Some customers just want to be treated better. Some customers want to get more value from you, not by a discount, but just by even giving you, the size that you are wearing, because some retailers, they don't even carry all the sizes. Just being there for your needs. It's the value concept of what is value. I think we need to go a little bit beyond the discount and look at other ways that we can provide value. And I think in this entire conversation, what I'm saying in my book, I have a chapter talking about ambassadors and people that like are brand ambassadors, people that embrace your brand and they will be loyal to you. You need to ask them what is valuable for you. You need to listen to what they have to say. Just have a conversation like the way I'm talking to Kathy. Just invite some of them to your place and discuss about, okay, what would you think it would be valuable for you? And really fine tune a little bit more. And I liked your example, but there can be many other examples like this that can elevate the value of what you are providing to your customers and transform this very transactional world into more of a customer-centric world.
Right. And it's very interesting, though, when you talk to the customers, as you said, because when we were doing that early footwear example, we did a survey to customers, and we did a survey to store managers and said, tell us what you want. And, because we thought they'd come back and say, give me a 20% off coupon or give me, they came back and said, we want meaningful experiences. We want first access. We want some creative things. So to your earlier question, it's how do we reimagine retail? And then how do you build a business case to get that executive in the C-suite not to be afraid to test into reimagining that? Because if you said this every, they still have to deliver their earnings. And I live the P&L pain of knowing that. But how do you test in? How do you convince them? How do you say, we can get on a website, we'll stay on the footwear example, I let the customer tell me on the website your preferences. Tell me that you're a urban runner, a trail runner, what kind of sneakers you want, what size you want to wear. Tell me all of those things in a preference center. And now we have the technology that will allow that retailer to market those things to her or to expose those things to her on the web store. So now we've absolutely upped our game on her experience. And I always use her, sorry. Guys don't shop, it's always her.
No, but overall, I think we need to try new things. We need to find ways to test out new things, new concepts, new approaches, because otherwise, the only way to go forward will be deeper and deeper and deeper discounts, and really, when really it should be all about preserving margins, and how can we preserve margins by providing more value to our customers. And I'm also talking about this in my book about how can we understand what the market wants, where is the demand, what do our customer want, and then how can we manufacture and how can we use our supply chain to actually fulfill that need, because ultimately that is what is the holy grail also in retail, having that match. If that match comes as close as possible, then you don't have to destroy your margins. Then you have a business that is healthy enough, that creates enough money so that you can experiment more and you can find money to provide more value in different ways to your customers.
Mm-hmm. It really, we talked about this, it comes down to the data. And we talk data, and believe it or not, I was a history major in college, so I'm not mathematical, but it comes down to do you have the data? Do you know how to use it? And most of our retailers, if we're talking about customer 360 view, they say they have it, but they don't know how to use it. Or if we're talking about inventory and forecasting and planning, they haven't built those models yet in some cases. There are folks out there who are doing great forecasting, but how you use the data to build a compelling argument. We had one example of inventory turn at, I can say this because Linens and Things, inventory turn at Linens and Things was under 3%, 3 times a year. That is, and the speed on the pipeline was 26 weeks. You can't run a business with low turns and long pipeline. So now the name of the game is how you get nimbler, how you do it faster, how you leverage your inventory across all channels. So how do you leverage the store inventory and the web inventory? Because now it's just shopping. There are no the lines are gone. It's just shopping. And it's, can I ship from store and use store inventory? Can I use a ship from store model? Can I highlight on the website something that's in heavy ownership in the store and help drive ownership down? So there are so many tools, but it's having the discipline and building the data models to make those things work.
And you accumulated a lot of that data, Kathy, with something you mentioned earlier, the Omnichannel Retail Index. So I know it's in its 7th year. Give us the nuts and bolts of how you get this data. Who's involved in this index, and how do you get the numbers that you're looking for?
So we've done this for 7 years now. It is between 115 and 125 retailers and brands that we look at every year. We look at, and that's broken into 14 verticals. So we look at a department store vertical, jewelry vertical, office vertical, because we want to look at the data and understand, are there nuances between, let's say, what's going on in apparel and footwear versus office. So 125 stores, 14 verticals, and we look at 250 data points, 250 features and functions every year. And we're looking to see what's trending. Because that becomes sort of the customer expectation. If something is trending, the retailers are adopting it, so there's a first sign that it must be good. And if something's trending or it's in, when we're doing strategy, if there's let's say there's some feature and function, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but 90% of the retailers out there offer the ability to look at, show me inventory availability by store as a filter. And your company doesn't. But the customer expects that, and they get very frustrated. So when we're advising our clients, we're saying, why don't you have inventory availability by store? It makes the customer experience better. They now know I can drive to your store in Flemington, New Jersey and get this item. So we're using it in that way to start to identify inventory availability by store is a great example of something that's taking off, and the customers are expecting it because it makes their shopping experience easier.
And what are some of the pain points you discovered in that index?
Clickable content. So we're, as we went through COVID, suddenly it became very important for the customer who wasn't going into the store for a short period of time. What does content look like? And retailers and brands, and we also do a grocery index, they have some very rich content. So we're now looking at, can that content become clickable? Can I click on that content? And that is something that is just starting to emerge. And I believe OSF has done some interesting work there on creating shoppable content now, so that, again, make it easy for the customer. I saw this on a blog, or I saw this on the site. I want it, but now I got to go hunt it down. So, some pain points there.
One interesting area is curbside delivery. Before the pandemic, it wasn't a thing. Now it has become like a thing. People understand the value of it and started using it more and more. And it's interesting how the trend kind of continues. It didn't die off after the pandemic. So I'm not sure.
It didn't die. I think it actually, the pandemic forced it, and it is interesting. We talk about sometimes retailers are slow. They didn't have a choice. Their stores were closed, and it was amazing. Within weeks, they were doing curbside pickup. So they figured it out. I think the stats over this Thanksgiving weekend indicated that curbside, penetration was lower. But I might argue when you get into the January snowstorms and February snowstorms, I'm going to be using curbside pickup to get my items. Yeah. So it's tough. The other pain point is when we look at buy online, pick up in store, it is dependent on the inventory availability and a match to what's on the website. So we worked with some folks, again, where we got into the data and said, wow, you've got merchandise on the website, but it's not in your stores. You've got, and so what kind of experience are you giving the customer if they want to filter by store availability? Or it's a different price, God forbid, in your stores than it is on the website. So there are some disconnects that we have to guide people through.
And I know in last year's index, you talked a lot about optimizing search and navigation. How has that changed over the past year? Have people started to grapple on the fact that that is a key tool for their customer, the fact that they can easily find things on a site?
The ease of finding it, the use of search, the recognition now that, which is a sad thing, that so many customers come into the website, maybe from Google, and they're coming deep into the site, not through the homepage. Are they using the search bar? Can they use faceted navigation? And we've actually done work, and we've got some very talented folks at OSF. We've done work where we've actually looked at bestsellers and found that, again, it's sort of data geeky, so stop me, is bestsellers weren't showing because as soon as I started using the facets, the bestsellers were dropping out. So it's now, again, it's like merchandising a store. You want your best item front and center on the four-way when you walk in the door. When I'm merchandising the website, I want my best items that are, when I put in a search for a black dress, I want to show the best seller first. Or if I'm a really smart retailer, if I've got a lot of inventory, I want to show that one second so that I'm moving through inventory. So those are some of the things that it's still important, it's still an opportunity area, and it becomes even more interesting when you get into mobile and you're talking about mobile utilization and mobile the picture, navigation, and search on a mobile device.
And there is even a new angle coming, like Fast and Furious. Like we had the conversation with Laurent about Coveo and their search-enabled, AI-enabled search, and how that actually contributes to improve the relevance of search on page in an online experience, and how that can also facilitate the life of merchandisers in making it easier and making them to do way more meaningful things, like what they can put together. It's very interesting and really kind of transform the way we think a little bit about search and all the relevant content that is being brought up to you, because once we know you, once we know your preferences, then
exactly.
then
I'm that runner.
Everything needs to be shaped and adapted to your particular needs and expectations.
Right, but then you build that business case, which is more revenue, more conversion, more repeat visits, happy customer, because the experience is great. And if the customer is willing to tell you who they are and what their preferences are, the good news, bad news is they've told you. The bad news is they expect you now to use it. So, be careful what you ask for, I guess. So if you're going to ask, tell me that, I wear a size 10 shoe and I'm an avid runner and I do this. So now next time I come, you've set the expectation that you're going to talk to me. You know who I am.
But I mean, we are moving from a world where it's kind of like a relationship between brands and shoppers is like one to everybody, then moves to one to a segment, because everybody would segment, and for this type of person I will give this type of content, so it's kind of one to a segment, and now we are moving to one, like the brand has a personal conversation with you, Kathy, and they know that you're an avid runner and they know your size, and they really want to engage with you in that way. But that sets also an expectation, because once they've done this with you, then they have to kind of keep doing it because it's that what we are expecting.
And there's a downstream impact to, I do want the one-to-one, but that means I now have to have more content to serve up to the runner, or more pieces of photography, more images, more marketing. So it is a crazy evolving world, but you can clearly see where the business case could go and the revenue lift would come from.
I think overall it's worth at least considering all the possibilities, at least really understanding what are the options, to kind of weigh in and see, okay, well, what's my way forward? Where do I want to go with this? And find the right balance, because you might not be able to do everything, but you might be able to do just enough to differentiate and to provide enough value to your customers and to really reimagine your business. It doesn't have to be completely reimagining, but if you just do enough and a meaningful size, I think it's what needs to be done.
I think the successful retailer is the one who does that reimagining. That, and I've lived where it was October was budget season. So it's suddenly I've got to do a budget. I got to tell you what I'm going to do next year. I got to get my capital budget done. But it's taking a step back even earlier in the year and starting to look, what do I want to do next year and 2 years out and 3 years out? Because if I'm not planning and changing, you might be linens and things and not be around, because you haven't reimagined and you haven't started to have that path forward.
And Kathy, you mentioned revenue a few moments ago. Let's talk about leaning into revenue and profitability. We all know customers are focused on marketing. What is driving this, and what are the ways we're winning with that?
Right now, marketing costs, and I've in this month, 3 times I've heard it from clients, help me. One client, their marketing cost is up 40% over LY. Another client just 2 weeks ago, her marketing cost is up 60% over LY. So that you can't buy, you got to have a profitable business, and you can't buy, another client that's had, marketing as, a 1-to-1 return. So you're buying the business and it's not sustainable. So what we're really hearing from our customers is, help me lean, 2 things. Help me with SEO and make sure that I'm driving the free organic traffic to the max to my site that I can. So, we talked just today in our sessions about, can we do SEO audits? Can we help identify for a client ways that they can really up their game on organic traffic? And then on the marketing side, it's comes back to data, know the customer, email marketing. SMS marketing is now really hot. But do you have a strategy for what you're going to do with SMS? Do you understand the nuances of SMS by generation? For your customer might not be the same as another customer, but what is your strategy? And I think sometimes retailers get caught off guard, like, wow, SMS, I'm not ready, I don't have it. We had a conversation this week about somebody who's like, I need to have SMS ready to go by Mother's Day, and I don't have it. So it's leaning in to understand costs are going up. You got to do more to acquire customers, and that's expensive. So can you get more from SEO? And then how do you do more with your customers, your retained customers? So.
But if you're setting up your entire strategy around the transaction, you're right from the beginning, you're wrong. You're going to lose money because the money you're investing in the marketing will be driven by your deep discounts. People will come, they will buy once and they are gone. And that's not what you want. Your marketing strategy has to be around an experience. You have to have some thinking behind it. Is once they land on your page, once they enter your shopping store, they have to have a meaningful experience, they have to have a meaningful interaction so that you can capture them, you can convert them into customers, and then have them come back to your store because they are interested, they have value in what you're offering. If we are just going to increase our marketing budgets to do the same things and to provide deep discounts or whatnot, then you're not on the right track.
It's also reimagining the marketing that it's a shopper. It's not a web shopper, it's a shopper. And it used to be hard because I was accountable for the digital P&L, but I would want to drive traffic to the store. And if I can meaningfully drive traffic to the store, the company benefits. So it's like also, how do I use the web to drive traffic to the store? Whether it's show me inventory availability in the store, or it's show me amazing content and images, or it's, tell me about an event that's going on in the store, or, that we can drive traffic, drive revenue, and then we lift the high water lifts all boats. We're lifting the whole business. So I think that's the other piece when you're imagining digital. It's not just about having an email that drives to the website to buy the black sweater. It's knowing me and maybe broadening that out.
And how does the digital side know that you're driving people to the store? Like, because as someone on the e-com side, you don't know, right? If people are going to the store about what you're doing. And the folks on the digital end are like, man, I'm doing all this work. It's working, but I'm getting no credit for it. So how do you link those two together?
I think it's hard. It's really hard in my past life, which was a while ago now. I mean, the one way you could do it is here's a coupon, but that coupon is like, that's like doing crack. I mean,
don't say coupon in front of Jerry. He does not like that word.
I admit it. It's like doing drugs. But you can measure it if you go in the store and use this. But you can measure it if you're doing something. If you have appointments for a cooking class, if you're running an event in a store, if you're doing ear piercing or something in a store, a cooking demo, you can measure the impact you have of driving traffic. And then we're also really smart. You can measure the impact if you know, in the stores, I was in digital, they know sales by hour, by minute. So they know trends. So they know Wednesday's trend for the last 8 weeks has been X. We dropped this email that talked about the stores and Wednesday's trend went to Y. Now, is it tied? No, but there's a way to use data to start to see, that there is an impact.
But using the experiences that you just mentioned to bring people to the store, I think that's a very smart way of bringing people to the store from digital. And I think that we need to double down on that. We need to make it even more interesting. Like we'll give you a personal shopping experience in the store if you come at 11 a.m. when there is no traffic. Make it interesting. Having reasons to come to the store and driving that traffic to the store, and we can connect the dots because once you're there, we can set up an appointment. Once you set up an appointment, we have your data. Exactly. And we can then prove it that it was because of digital. So there are many ways of actually going after this and connecting the dots, and not always, because you won't have everything and you won't be able to measure everything at 100%, but if you get a decent 70-80% understanding of what's happening, it's enough.
Right. You reminded me of something, though, from my past, my checkered past that I've forgotten about. I ran bridal registry for Linens and Things, and I ran bridal registry for a media company, The Knot, for 4 years. And so talk about connected customer, passionate customer. But one of the things that we would do is private shop, come in at 8 in the morning and register, come in after close and register. Is creating that experience. Yeah. And a bridal registry was worth, substantial to business because you caught her at 26 years old and you want to keep her for the duration of her marriage, which is hopefully long. So but it was creating an experience.
I know you talk about roadmaps a lot, and the ORI I'm sure helps companies with the roadmaps. What's the roadmap looking like now? Because we were reminiscing of the olden times of your e-commerce days, how things have changed, but it's moving really fast. So how do you create this roadmap and stay on it with everything moving so quickly?
For us, it starts with working with my technology counterparts. It starts with the ORI, but it's identifying where are you today, what are your gaps, and then where do you want to be tomorrow? What's that vision, what's the dream, and how do you get there? So the roadmaps now start to look about in 1999, I was lucky to be able to transact. Now we're talking about customer data platforms, 360 view of the customer, highly personalized customer experiences, loyalty, all on a roadmap. We're looking at richer content on roadmaps. So, and then you really get out there and you start to say, how do you connect the web and the store even further? And what new things can you do to optimize inventory? There are tools out there. I think that's the figuring out, for me, it'd be like being a kid in a candy store. Which one do I buy? But there are tools out there that, for clienteling that, in some retailers, you can have that talented salesperson actually reach out to a customer. Or there are tools out there now, even for customer service. If, we've got a store, we use Linens and Things, selling a $500 mixer, they're going to call a call center in, some place that doesn't know it, or can you call a local store to someone who knows all the product details and can actually touch that mixer as they're talking to you, or even do it on a video call. So I think the universe changes to become very if anything, I would say it's really to become very customer centric, and it does. The data is big, and we hear it a lot from our customers.
And one of those tools is OSF. Talk to me, Kathy, how the end-to-end digital acceleration and transformation, how does OSF do all that?
I've got technology counterparts. So what I do is that strategy, where we talk about the pillars of a business, and I'll use ORI as a conversation starter. And it's interesting because it's like, what kind of grade do you get? So we will call a retailer and say, hey, would you like to know what your ORI score was? They're always willing to talk. Did I get, what was my score? And then, we open the door and we start talking about what are their pain points, what are they doing, what are the gaps, what's on our wish list or roadmap, and then we start filling the gaps. And that's where I go to my counterparts at OSF and go, is there a solution for this? And could it be a Salesforce cloud? Can Salesforce loyalty solve for this? Can Salesforce OMS help solve for us on that pressure point on inventory? So we'll talk through that, and then we sort of close the gap to go back to the client and say, here's what we think your roadmap looks like. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, prioritized out by cost and level of effort. And sometimes we're trying to also come up with a, quick thumbnail on what is that revenue going to look like if you do this? Because that's the first thing the retailer is going to push me on. I'm going to do all this, I'm going to spend the money, what's my return? So I use my, my peers at OSF to help guide me on the technologies that can make our retailers win.
I think overall, where we are really strong is understanding the business of the customer and then understanding which tools could actually make that happen, which tools, which technologies, which innovations we can bring to the table to try new things, to sometimes it's not even about new things, it's really making all things working really well and connected with other systems within a customer's environment, and really having this really nice match between business strategy, understanding roadmaps, understanding the trends in the market, and then which tools will support and improve and accelerate those things. I think that's what we bring to the table overall.
Kathy, is there anyone who doesn't want to hear their score, their ORI score? Or?
I could say some might not want to know their ORI score, but that means they have opportunity. I think it's the difference of what we do with strategy is you started and said I've been around for a long time, but I've been in the business, store operations. I ran a warehouse for 3 years for Children's Place. I've launched web. I've run P&L, I've run registry. I bring the voice of the business to my conversations with the business. And they actually say, you get it, you think like me, you know my pain points. So we collaborate incredibly well. And then I've got a team of consultants who are folks just like me, who have been there, done that, run the business, had the thrill of revenue and the agony of P&L. But being able to talk to the business, like, to a CMO and talk about, ROHAS and talk about, data, candidly and honestly and non-judgmentally is really positive. And then having OSF, to have somebody I can go to and say, help me solve now for this, is amazing. And then the next step is, okay, now it's in, and how do we optimize it? And we got a team of people who can do that.
So, Gerry, is there any way we can make an AI version of Kathy, just in case, she doesn't want to hang out much longer with you guys? Because she's got some experience and got some know-how there.
Well, actually, Kathy has an entire team of people just like her working for her and developing this strategy arm of OSF. So it's a pretty good development what we are putting together. So I'm quite confident in that. And I don't think Gerry will go anywhere anytime soon.
I love what I do, and the only risk is I occasionally get a little geeky and a little down in the weeds. And they got to reel me back in.
All right. Well, one last thing for me that I'd love to pick your brain about is the metaverse. So you've been through Web 1.0, mobile, and who knows how long we are to this. Metaverse is on the horizon. How do you see it fitting in what you're doing in the retail space?
It's when I've talked with clients, a lot of times they've I don't want to lead, I'll follow happily. And I think I might have said 6 months ago, I don't get it, but I'm starting to think it can be a branding play if it's done right. It can help elevate the brand, it can help with traffic. But it's understanding and really going into it eyes wide open of what do you expect to get out of it and what are the KPIs that you're going to measure. So I would share, and I think it's not wrong to share because it's public, we are working with Claire's, which sells kids' jewelry in the mall, major chain, and they've launched a game on the metaverse called Shimmerville. And they went into it brilliantly. That it's tied to merchandise, it reflects their brand, they've got their KPIs laid out, so they're seeing what's happening and how people are engaging with it. So I think it's a very interesting branding play. And then does it become a revenue play? Possibly. And you've got Walmart in the metaverse, Forever 21 in the metaverse. So people are playing, but they're not sharing the wins and the data yet. So I think that's what's worth keeping your eye on.
It's very interesting in these virtual reality spaces. One thing which I can definitely see happen is every time when you're talking about personalization, you can put together an experience where you can personalize an item for that VR, and actually you can from the VR buy it and also use it in real life. Yeah. So the exact same thing that you bought for for that VR space, for metaverse or whatever, that can be bought in the virtual reality, in metaverse, in wherever you are. But you can also export that customized item that you bought, and you can actually wear it in real
Right,
life.
so it's pretty, and it's, as a mother of two, in college, gaming is insane. So can you use that concept of the metaverse and gaming to build a brand, and brand awareness is pretty interesting.
We see this happening in gaming more and more. In-game shopping is becoming more and more of a revenue stream, and people take this very, very seriously. And blurring the things between what's happening in-game in reality.
Well, I think gaming's obviously on the forefront of this, but the one thing that they're probably gonna have to figure out that all the brands are probably waiting for is if you buy an item, say a token or something in Call of Duty, will you be able to use that in Fortnite? Right now, you can't. So that integration is going to be very tricky down the line in the metaverse, because you can be, could you wear your Nike outfit when you go into the Adidas world? That's the space of the metaverse people are not going to be very comfortable with, right, Gerry?
Yes. There is an entire discussion going on about these topics. I think eventually an answer will come up. And I think metaverse will drive also this because they have a vested interest in making sure that you can go from one place to another and make it a little bit portable. But yeah, I mean, I can totally see this happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think it's very challenging and I'll try and find some of them. What are the KPIs? What are the KPIs of success? Because it's not without a pretty major cost. So it's what is this play in the metaverse?
Yeah. Well, Kathy, it's been a great conversation with you. I hope you have another 3 decades in you, because it sounds like you're getting ready for the metaverse. So we love it. Her name is Kathy Kimple, Executive Director, Digital Strategy at OSF Digital. Thank you very much, Kathy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvani.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.